The Israel-Gaza conflict is not a recent development. It is rooted in a century-old struggle over land, identity, and security. The early 20th century witnessed rising tensions between Jewish immigrants and the Arab population in Palestine, then under Ottoman rule. The end of World War I brought about the British Mandate for Palestine, further complicating the situation. The 1947 UN partition plan, proposing the creation of independent Arab and Jewish states, was rejected by Arab leaders, and the 1948 Arab-Israeli War ensued. This war resulted in Israel's victory and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, an event known as the Nakba, or catastrophe. The 1967 Six-Day War saw Israel capture the Gaza Strip along with the West Bank and East Jerusalem. This occupation further fueled Palestinian resentment and resistance. The First Intifada, a Palestinian uprising against Israeli occupation, began in 1987 and lasted for 6 years. The Oslo Accords of the 1990s offered a glimmer of hope, with the creation of the Palestinian Authority and the promise of a two-state solution. However, continued settlement expansion in the West Bank and the failure to address key issues such as the status of Jerusalem hampered progress. In the early 21st century, Hamas, a Palestinian Islamist group, gained prominence. Hamas rejected the Oslo Accords and called for Israel's destruction. In 2006, Hamas won the Palestinian legislative elections. This victory was met with international sanctions, as Hamas was designated a terrorist organization by many countries, including the United States and the European Union. In 2007, Hamas seized control of the Gaza Strip, ousting the Fatah-led Palestinian Authority. This led to an Israeli blockade of Gaza, which has been in place ever since. The blockade has severely restricted the movement of people and goods, crippling Gaza's economy and creating a humanitarian crisis. Hamas and Israel have fought several wars since 2008, each marked by heavy civilian casualties and destruction. The underlying issues of the conflict, including the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the expansion of Israeli settlements, remain unresolved. The ongoing blockade and recurrent conflicts have had a devastating impact on the people of Gaza. The Gaza Strip is one of the most densely populated areas in the world, with over 2 million inhabitants living in an enclave of just 141 square miles. The blockade has crippled Gaza's economy, pushing unemployment rates above 50%. Essential goods, including food, medicine, and fuel, are in short supply. The healthcare system is on the brink of collapse, lacking essential equipment and medication. The psychological toll on the population is immense. Children who have known nothing but war and blockade suffer from trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. The international community has repeatedly called for an end to the blockade and for increased humanitarian access to Gaza. However, little progress has been made and the situation remains dire. Section 4, Failed Peace, a history of broken promises. Numerous attempts have been made to broker peace between Israel and Hamas, but all have failed. The international community, led by the United States, has played a key role in these efforts. However, deep mistrust between the parties, coupled with a lack of political will, has hindered progress. Hamas demands an end to the blockade and the recognition of a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. Israel, on the other hand, insists on Hamas's disarmament and recognition of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. The failure to address the root causes of the conflict, including the issue of settlements, the status of Jerusalem, and the right of return for Palestinian refugees, has made a lasting peace elusive. Section 5. The current escalation and the uncertain future. The recent escalation of violence is a stark reminder of the volatility of the situation. The triggers for the current conflict are complex and multifaceted. They include the planned evictions of Palestinian families from the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in East Jerusalem, clashes between Israeli police and Palestinian protesters at the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, and the firing of rockets from Gaza into Israel. The international community has condemned the violence and called for restraint from both sides. However, the situation remains extremely tense, with no end in sight to the violence. The future of the region hangs in the balance. A lasting solution requires addressing the underlying issues of the conflict, including the occupation, the blockade, and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. It also demands a commitment to dialogue and diplomacy from all parties involved. The alternative is a continuation of the cycle of violence, with devastating consequences for both Israelis and Palestinians.